He's one of the most iconic actors of our time and has a movie that just released that we're going to talk about tonight. It is Nicolas Cage night here on Real to Real Talk. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Real to Real Talk. I am Sergio Barrera, and it's time once again to talk all things movies. Joining me, as always, is Paul Britton, our other Real to Real talker. Paul,
yeah,
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas freaking Cage, man.
Nicolas freaking Cage, absolutely. With the release of his most recent film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, tonight we thought we would take a journey down and through the career of known as born Nicholas Kim Coppola, professionally known as Nicolas Cage. I have to tell you that from the sort of, you know, if I think back to my furthest back memory of Nicolas Cage, he had to kind of grow on me. You know, okay. You know, when I look back at his filmography, all I can see is just film after film that is so memorable to me. Some for good reasons, others not really. But I remember that as, you know, a movie lover, he was not always my favorite cup of tea. In fact, I had to kind of go backwards on his filmography for me to really begin to appreciate him. So, you know, as we begin our conversation tonight, just some initial impressions from you, Paul, as to your thoughts on one Nicolas Cage, who we're going to feature tonight on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw him in a movie theater was Raising Arizona, 1987.
Okay,
I saw that movie in theaters. I have no idea why. Like, it's a very early. Paul is introduced to sort of more artistic movie fare movie, but I loved it, and I mean, he was great. And then, like, it's interesting because I don't remember seeing, like, obviously I saw Moonstruck, but I didn't see it in a theater.
Yeah.
I did after Raising Arizona, I eventually saw, like, Peggy Sue Got Married at some point, and then I would have seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High at some point, even though he's only in it for like 2 minutes and is barely, you know, in it at all. But like Honeymoon in Vegas would be in 1992, so like 5 years later. Honeymoon in Vegas would be the, like, next movie that I actually went to a movie theater to see it in. And honestly, between like 1987 and 1992, there really wasn't much in there that I feel like, oh, I wish I had seen him in the theater in that. Like, I recently watched Vampire's Kiss, which came out in 88, and I loathed that movie with a deep-rooted passion. His performance is bonkers off the wall, and I get that, but you know, it's just the movie is just atrocious. And but Honeymoon in Vegas was one that I was really looking forward to. And I agree with you. I kind of was like, okay, whatever, you know, like after Raising Arizona, it's just like, but then, you know, then comes along Leaving Las Vegas and The Rock and Conair and Face Off. And it's like, and City of Angels, which I frigging love, by the way, but I get it. It's not for everybody, but like for me, those are like 5 movies in a row that are just like, oh my God.
Oh yeah. He definitely had a patch that was the peak of what his career has been to this point.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to say, and this may shock you, but I think one of the earliest films of his that I can remember seeing, and it was only because it was on cable, was Guarding Tess. That was one of the first films, which was kind of ironic when we get to our review this week. It was one of those moments of like, oh yeah, there was that movie, you know. So
I mean, Guarding Tess is deep in his
filmography. Early 90, what was it, 94? Yeah, 94.
Okay.
But even so, 94 is sort of a little snapshot of what his career can be. You know, Guarding Tess was a decent film, but then there's 3 more that same year that the other 3, like, I can't recall. Maybe you can at least one of those titles, but
so I have seen It Could Happen to You, but I didn't see it in theaters. I remember when it came out in theaters. I didn't see it in theaters. It's actually one that I saw recently. Yeah. And it's charming and cute enough,
Right.
Trapped in Paradise is actually one that I don't know if I ended up seeing in theaters. The thing is it stars it stars him with John Lovitz and Dana Carvey, and right. I mean, I would have seen anything with John Lovitz and Dana Carvey because of how good of a Saturday Night Live fan I was. But I think it was so badly reviewed that I ended up not seeing it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely, like I said, there's this period of time. Like I would have been introduced, or I was introduced to him around the time of Guarding Tess. Okay. Leaving Las Vegas, of course, would have been one that caught my attention, and it was his Oscar-winning turn in Leaving Las Vegas that then opened the door for much of what followed. Right?
Yeah. So had you not seen Moonstruck?
I have, yes, absolutely.
Before that, though.
No, not before that. I had to. I said, I had to go back in time to pick up movies like Moonstruck and Raising Arizona, because again, it just I couldn't even tell you that at the time. I'm thinking about 1987. I'm 1 year away from graduating high school. I'm, in school working, and that's pretty much my life, right? So I discovered Raising Arizona much later. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that the very first time I saw Raising Arizona was at a quote along at an Alamo draft house. So that's how it had reached that level of getting embedded into the what do you call it? Gosh, there's a term and it's escaping me. Cult status.
Yes, for sure.
And, and so in fact, I remember kind of resisting it because Jen was like, "It's going to be fantastic," and I'm like, "It's about what?" And then, of course, I saw it and I was like, "This is brilliant."
Yeah,
absolutely
it really
brilliant.
is too.
So much of his filmography prior to 1995 would have been going back in time for me.
Yeah,
because where I really really began to immerse myself in his films was shortly after, when we get that sort of golden season of Cage. Golden era of Cage, where we're getting, like you said, The Rock in 1996, both Conair and Face Off in 1997, all of which are in heavy rotation in our lives here at home. I mean, The Rock, I can't tell you, I'm ashamed to say it's probably been over 50 times that I've seen that film over the years.
I'm a bit of contrarian. Like, I know people love The Rock. But like, if I'm going to rank those three, because let's just be let's just get it out of there.
Be interesting. Here we go.
The Rock, Conair, and Face Off are three all-time top tier, irrefutable, and wonderful popcorn action flicks.
Absolutely.
Just out,
one right after the other.
For me, and running right after the other, 3 in a row. Holy crap. Okay.
Right.
Most people are going to put Rock number 1, and then like Face Off or Conair, depending on what you like more. Most people tend to like Face Off just because of how zany it is. There are a few people who are going to put Face Off first just because of how insane it is, and then they're definitely going to put The Rock next. I am in the small, tiny population. I'm putting Conair 1.
Okay, so that surprises me because I really thought that you would think of that as sort of the lesser of the 3.
It's my favorite.
And let me tell you, I would just plead to you, don't make me rank them, because I love them all at the same level for various reasons.
Right.
And so it makes my heart happy to hear you say that you would put Conair on the top of that list of such, like you said, popcorn action films.
Yeah. It's Conair, and then it's Face Off, and then it's The Rock. How do I go? The Rock. It's they're
right
all
there. Yeah.
They're all right there. But I definitely have, like, if you told me you can only pick one and you're not going to want to be able to watch all the other 3 for another year, I'm just going to put Conair in, the other 2 I'm putting Conair in, and that's why. Right. Because of Malkovich and Buscemi.
Okay, yeah. So by the time you get to Conair now becomes, it's Nicolas Cage, yes, but it's about, we go through that phase where it's the big ensemble cast action films are starting to become the thing, right?
Right. It's
And
Michael
so
Bay in his absolute peak Bayness.
Yes, peak Bayness. I love it.
mean,
And that's
oh
the
my
thing
God.
for me. Okay, so this could change next week. So if you told me to rank them right now, and it's so hard to do because, like you said, they're all so close, but they're also different. That's the thing.
They really are. That is true too.
That's the reason I can't even tell you like how would I rank them. But The Rock is the one that has more sentimental value to me because Jen and I so rarely line up and align on action films. And this one is, I mean, we can quote it line for line, that kind of thing.
Nice.
We've watched it so many times together.
Nice.
Conair, same thing. We love it because of the ensemble cast.
Yes.
Because of the call outs to, Silence of the Lambs with Steve Buscemi's character and all these other, John Malkovich, don't even get me started, right? On his absolutely. And then of course Face Off is Woo. Like, I mean, John Woo. I think the reason Face Off for me would land at number 3 on this list is simply because it is so overwrought with John Woo-ness.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll go back to it and I'll eat popcorn every time.
For as much. Okay. So Conair features, people who can't fly planes landing a plane on the strip in Las Vegas.
Kind of.
And yet Face Off is 50 million billion zillion times more improbable than like of the 3 movies, of the 3 least likely to ever happen on, just most improbable movies ever. Yeah. And these 3 are definitely in the top 50 of all time. Face Off is definitely the least probable of the 3.
Sure.
Like, and by the way, I'm referring to like top 50 improbable movies that are still actually watchable. Like there are a lot of improbable movies that are just like horrible, and it's like that's improbable and I can't watch it. But Face Off is just impossibly improbable.
Yeah.
But amazingly watchable. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Good Lord, when it was on heavy rotation on TNT and TBS, I'm watching. I don't care about the friggin' commercials. I own it on DVD. I'm still, if I'm flipping around, if I'm looking, this is pre-streaming, kids. Okay, so this is before there were streamers and stuff, and so, my DVD collection at the time was probably like 20 to 50 titles, somewhere in that range, where it's well over 400 now, I think. So there were a lot of times where you just turn on cable and see what was on. Yeah. And if Face Off was on TBS or TNT, I'm in. I'm watching, and no doubt, no question. There's very few things that would be on another channel that I would be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna watch this other thing other than Face Off.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, and again, when we look at the work that he's done during that what I'll call the golden age of Cage, which was basically 1996 through 1997. If you really want to get an understanding of him as an actor, you got to go backwards and pick up some of his early stuff.
I just want to say, I think it goes from 96 to 2000. Like,
okay, I mean, we'll argue some of these titles, but Gone in 60 Seconds is definitely part of that list.
Right, and that's why I'm going. That's why I'm stretching it to 2000.
Gotcha.
Because I feel like the stuff that he did. 98. His Snake Eyes performance is insane, and like that movie just doesn't work. But
exactly.
But
he's over the top.
He went for it. Like he went for it, and that's the thing about Cage is he's gonna go for it. Like as long as he's going for it, you're gonna at least be entertained.
Sure.
But I personally, City of Angels was a huge friggin' movie, and I loved it. Like I'm not even gonna lie, and I had seen the original for like I don't remember what it's called, but I'd seen City of Angels. I'd seen the original before I saw City of Angels in the theater, and I still loved City of Angels. Partially because of the Goo Goo Dolls. But and then in '99, I mean, he worked with Scorsese. I mean, Bringing Out the Dead and 8mm. By the way, okay, yes, absolutely coming on the heels of 7, but I mean, 8mm is like. that movie blew my mind. I'll just
I think where 8mm suffered is people were coming off of Snake Eyes being kind of disappointed by that, not kind of, but being disappointed by that film. 8mm I don't think gets the respect that it deserves. But back to your list, I for whatever reason I go to sleep on City of Angels and forget it. I know, not that it's forgettable, it's a great film, but I forget that it's in that time frame, and so it really is, and it's one of those movies that I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I enjoy it every time. But then it's sort of there. He starts to enter shaky ground beyond Gone in 60 Seconds. The Family Man was okay, but then it's kind of hit and miss as his career progresses. Yeah. But then he'll hit another patch with the National Treasure franchise, and it's just this sort of.
So, and here's the other thing is,
and he makes so many movies. That's
yeah. So this is where it starts to get it. Like after Gone in 60 Seconds is where it starts to get interesting, because like I can make an argument for everything from Leaving Las Vegas all the way through Gone in 60 Seconds. I can't make, I haven't seen Family Man. I have never been interested in seeing Family Man. I know nothing about it.
It's pretty good.
Captain Corelli's Mandolin just looked just laughably dumb and just absolutely the wrong role for Nick Cage. Wind Talkers was okay. It was for a movie that shouldn't have been a fluff. It felt slight. It just did. It felt slight. Sonny I've never heard of before, but then he's in Adaptation, which is like definitely in my top 50 of all time movies, and one of the best movie going experiences I've ever had.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about that movie when we did our Charlie Kaufman episode.
Exactly. And Matchstick Men the next year, I freaking loved Matchstick Men. Yeah. Like when I bought that, when that came out, it was one that I bought the DVD immediately as soon as it was available that week, and I probably watched it like 5 or 6 times over the next month, and just because of how much I liked it. You know,
believe it or not, the film that introduced me to Sam Rockwell. That's how long it took me for me to get smart to him. I really enjoy that film. As I'm revisiting this list, I start to it's like I feel like we're on firmer ground because we get the National Treasure in 2004. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed Lord of War.
I haven't seen Lord of War.
Oh, so, you need to.
Okay,
you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Weatherman either. Have you?
See,
but so National Treasure is like is a huge ape. I feel like from The Rock, you know, we're on a plateau, from The Rock through City of Angels.
Right.
And with a, starting with City of Angels, a slight decline.
Yep.
That leads to some, what we just covered, some bad stuff. And then like a shoot back up to that exact same plateau with Adaptation, Matchstick Men, National Treasure. And then I'll go ahead and add Lord of War, even though I haven't seen it. But then, I mean, after that, this is the true, like, we're on a plateau and then boom. And then the when does he come back up for air is, I don't know,
Yeah. Because, no, you're right. Because, I mean, Ghost Rider, some would argue that was a bit of a bright spot.
I would argue with them. Against them.
National Treasure Book of Secrets didn't live up to the first one.
Did not.
So it isn't until, and again, we can argue this, but it isn't until Kick-Ass in 2010.
Yeah.
Where he gets sort of that, and I know it wasn't Tarantino, but he kind of gets the shot at the Tarantino type revival.
I agree.
Right.
And it's also the rare time where he takes sort of like a secondary role in a movie.
Exactly.
Because that's the thing is he keeps saying, like, you know what, forget it, this is going to be my movie. And in preparation for this podcast, I don't want to skip over Knowing, because I actually did watch Knowing.
Okay.
And that movie has a lot of potential to be good if it didn't take itself so freaking seriously. Oh my God.
I hate when movies do that.
Yeah. Like, calm down. Like, not everything needs to be like a biblical allegory.
Right.
Seriously.
Exactly. Yeah,
we don't need that in every movie.
Well, and see, so that's the thing. And this is where Nicolas Cage is such a conundrum for me, because once you get past Kick-Ass, where you felt like, okay, there's still gas in the tank.
Nothing.
It just dies.
Nothing.
It absolutely dies. And if there's anything I appreciate, I'm not jumping to the review yet, but there's something to be said.
Yeah.
For the fact that for all of this work,
that
happens from 2011 on.
Yeah.
It's just this inordinate amount of movies that just you're like, oh God, I remember Jiu-Jitsu when it came out, the just absolute slam it got in terms of reviews. And more importantly than that, Paul, I can't count almost any of these movies as movies that I've seen.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I sat down and I was like, I am going to just go to streamers and pick some random Nick Cage movies from 2011 through through 2020 that I've never seen of and that I've never heard of. Like the whole point was I wanted to pick movies never seen, never heard.
Okay.
And it's not difficult. Like I'm just telling you right now, it is not. Just go to a streamer, enter Nick Cage. You're going to get a movie you've never heard of before. It's going to be mercifully short. They're all, 100 minutes or less. Like, and even 100 minutes is super long. Like they're all like 90 minutes.
Right.
And I'm picked 3. I sent you the name of one of the 3 because I was hoping. Did you get a chance to watch Outcast?
I didn't.
Oh,
yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. So here are the 3 that I did. All right. I did 2014 Outcast. I did where is it? 2015 Pay the Ghost.
Okay.
And I did 2018. Where are you? 2018. Between Worlds.
Okay.
First of all, I'm just gonna say, like, these are just terrible films. These are just this is garbage. And
so much direct-to-video stuff.
It's all direct-to-video stuff, and it's perplexing. Why? But I do want to say, and I brought it up because it needed to be said that where is it? There you are. That Outcast is basically a poor man's 13th Warrior.
Okay.
So it's Hayden Christensen and Nick Cage.
Stop right there.
Right. So like I said, poor man's
right.
13th Warrior. It's Hayden Christensen and Nick Cage doing horrible accents. And
now I gotta watch it. Damn it.
Oh, it's I really hope that you do go back and watch it.
I will.
And I believe it's on Prime, if I remember correctly. That's one that I found on Prime.
Okay.
And I am telling you, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that Nick Cage should never try to do ever is an accent, because he can't do them. He cannot do them as illustrated in the movie we're going to be reviewing, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about this range of movies that brings forth the number one thing I want to say about Nick Cage, that I feel like after watching these 3 terrible movies, I feel like, okay, this is a true axiom, is that he is a director's actor, and that he is going to give a director the absolute most that he can.
Yeah.
And if the director is able to channel Nick Cage, you're at the very least you're getting something. You're getting something out of in this movie. This movie is going to be watchable and entertaining. Right. Why? Because you have been able to wrangle Nick Cage into giving you a decent performance. If a director is not capable of wrangling Nick Cage, as he was not, as the directors of Outcast and Pay the Ghost and Between Worlds, which by the way was just atrocious. Between Worlds is probably the worst of the 3. You're done. Because Nick Cage is just he's just not good. He needs to be directed. He desperately needs to be directed.
Yeah. All in all, when I look at all this work, and if you tie back to if you know some of his life, he's been in quite a few tax problems and legal problems and stuff. And I think that is part of what we're seeing in terms of the constant amount of work that he puts out that is this unfortunately just really, really bad. You have to almost get to 2021's Pig to start to see some of it, some of the old Nicolas Cage come out. And then, and who knows where it's going from here, because,
right.
What here's a guy who I can say I have seen what would probably be considered the best of his filmography, which is the most memorable, right? Because there are so many films that, I'm looking at a list and literally direct to video.
Yeah, no rating.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think that's our fault as movie lovers. I think we know what we're dealing with when we get Nicolas Cage in a film that we're like, what? Who is that? And what's he doing? So that when he does put out a film that gets like some sort of critical acclaim, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not been the norm, so let's check it out, right?
Yeah.
So then when we get to, and here's my segue, when we get to the film we're about to review,
yes,
my approach to this film, Paul, I'm just going to be very, very honest with you right from the outset, and you're probably going to say, well, yeah, that's you in all action movies. But specifically for this film, I said to myself, the only requirement I have of this movie going into it, I just need it to be entertaining. I'm not looking for script writing. I'm not looking for, it's going to have action. I said, if this movie wasn't told to me completely in the trailer, then I'll be happy. Okay. And before we even get into it, the thing I will say that this film did well for me, I think speaks to how Nicolas Cage feels about his own career. He's comfortable poking fun at himself, and he knows what's been going on. He is self-aware.
Is he?
I think he is. And the reason I say that is because of how this is a love letter from Nicolas Cage to who he could have been. Someone who I think the world and the public sees him as a relatively successful and memorable actor, but I think within it, this is sort of a letter to himself saying, "Listen, it could have been different. Now you're just working," and that becomes actually a crucial plot point to the film.
It is.
And so, all I needed was for it to entertain me. That's it.
Okay.
I had no high hopes for this thing.
So are we going into it now?
We're gonna go right into it. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right. So my problem with this movie is that I feel like it didn't have to. I feel like it could have been more real. Like, I feel like they didn't have to give him a fake wife.
Oh, that actually did play in my head.
They didn't have to give him a fake dog. Like, he has 4 real wives that you could absolutely pick any one of the 4 and probably have thrown them up on there, or a facsimile of them all together.
Yeah. Like,
they didn't have to make up that he married the makeup artist from Corelli's Mandolin.
Okay. Yeah.
They didn't have to make up that a meeting that he's having with somebody where he does this a stupid line reading in a horrible Boston accent, like just a laughably bad, but that's part of the good. But I also feel like it's because the movie takes place in the past, and they started off with saying this is when the movie's taking place. Like, they literally could have said, here's the meeting he had where he took on jujitsu. And I feel like there was an opportunity to not be, to not make things up, to actually incorporate his real life and, into the thing. And it would have been it was entertaining. It met your low bar.
Sure,
I was entertained, but I was also annoyed that they made up a lot of stuff. So that I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with my first complaint is they made up stuff when I feel like they didn't need to. And I feel like that shows a lack of self-awareness on Nick Cage's part.
And it's funny because I saw that as the complete opposite, because you're right. I get what you're saying. But to me, that's why I say I think he's incredibly self-aware, because he pokes fun at himself, but only
with
at
the
himself.
accent thing. Yeah.
Right. Well,
yeah.
not only that,
Okay.
but in the entirety of it, I think he's not, he knows he's the butt of the joke.
Okay.
And so that's how, again, I think we're on the same highway, but we're looking at it from two different perspectives.
I see what you're saying, and you're right. Maybe it does make more sense that he's only making fun of himself, and rather than bringing some of his real experience into it.
That would have been interesting, I can tell you, though.
Yeah.
Does he have kids?
I'm sure
I don't even know.
I'm sure he does.
Okay. Because I'm sure the daughter was made up as well, obviously. But
yeah.
But no, I do understand what you're saying. But like I said, I think my perspective came from the notion of, like, he would not make fun of anybody else but himself in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this has been marketed. It's not been necessarily marketed as his comeback, but there's a lot of weight put behind this film as being like, hey, this is a moment where he can sort of get himself back on firm ground. And while it is entertaining, there are too many moments where from a cinematic standpoint, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. Do we want to dive into that now? Because
absolutely.
None of the action sequences work at all for me.
Okay, so explain that, because I think they were enough for what they were trying to do, but they weren't.
But none of them work. Like none of them are, like, we're talking about a guy who was in Con Air and The Rock and Face Off.
Sure.
And does not pull off even the most simple of action sequence. And they make they belittle the movie. Honestly, like I would have rather, this is what I would have rather have had happen.
Okay.
Nick Cage shows up on the in Majorca.
Right.
And goes to the guy and happens to do a Google search and finds out, like, doesn't do this before he leaves, only does it after he meets the guy, which actually would have been funny and, like, great, and finds out that, like, this guy's, like, wanted, and everything that happens around him is in his head, and he blows up the scenarios rather than, I don't think it's a big spoiler alert here, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw spoiler alert up anyway. But I don't think it's a big spoiler alert to say that he ends up becoming sort of like a secret agent for the CIA, and I felt like that just didn't work for me at all. Whereas if instead of being a secret agent for the CIA, he is Nick Cage, who is been in all of these terrible movies and then entwines himself into this terrible movie plot, even though it's not real and it's completely imagined, and he, like, looks up the wrong fucking guy, like, that's funny. And I think that the movie is better because the CIA stuff just didn't work at all for me.
Yeah, well, again, I go back to this notion of why this movie doesn't work. It's the backstory or not the backstory, but the storyline that doesn't really work for me.
Right.
When you can get someone like Tiffany Haddish and make her character forgettable, there's a problem there. There's a problem there.
Yeah.
Because she is so talented. Pedro Pascal, I mean, golly, for me,
but he
made me laugh more.
Yeah, for sure. He's great
than
he's
everybody else in this. He's fantastic in this movie. I just think, and it's so funny because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm thinking, wow, I had the complete opposite thought, but I still didn't feel like this was a successful film. Like, I loved that they muted the action sequences because we're so used to him in his movies. They're like huge, tremendous action set pieces, and here he is in a situation where he needs to be able to handle that car chase, and it becomes this overly simplistic thing. And so I was viewing it as, well, of course, because this is the guy, not the star of the, you know what I'm saying? So, and the only reason that sort of became the thread in my mind is because of his alter ego that was, Nick Cage, superstar kind of thing.
The second best part of the movie. Nicky is the second best part of the movie.
Yeah. And so I think that's where that perspective, my viewpoint of the film was, of course, it's going to be muted because this is actually Nicolas Cage. And the fact that he can even survive this thing is just pure fucking luck. Right. So that's sort of how I approached it.
If Interesting. Okay. I wonder. But ultimately, it's interesting because neither one of us thought. Like the one thing we agree on is that plot line didn't work at all.
No, not at all.
It just
Not at
doesn't
all.
work at all on any level.
It was like a simple vehicle to try to move the story forward. I mean, even Neil Patrick Harris, they could have had so much more weight
Yep.
in sort of moving the storyline, because you wanted the occasional phone call from the producer checking in on him, and this or stuff like that was missing from this film. That you're just left with. It's almost like they built the chassis of the car simply to move the characters forward and the story forward, but didn't really like flesh anything out.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the denouement, number one, we're already there. We know where this is headed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then when you want that one final like action sequence, it just it's a car chase, but like it was just very flat.
Yeah.
Across so many of its levels.
And my last complaint.
Okay.
Do we really need to still get Shorty's ending? Like, why are we doing that?
I had the exact same thought.
Why are we doing? Why is it okay to still get Shorty's ending?
It's
like
a trope,
why is anybody okay with that? Like, why did nobody say, "Oh wait, you know what? This is basically get Shorty, and we need to not do this."
Exactly.
Even though we got Demi Moore, which is a huge win. Congratulations.
Right. I wonder what the budget on that was.
Sorry. But
yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when I walked into this one thing, it just entertained me. I enjoyed the trailer more.
Yes.
Than I enjoyed the film.
For sure. Because the trailer wasn't super heavy with the CIA storyline.
Right. Just enough.
Although, goddamn, those Nikki scenes were so good, and I'm glad they didn't show Nikki in the trailer. There was only like
2 or 3. There was one glimpse we got of him, but enough for us to go, oh, well, what's that about?
I don't even remember that, but I just remember, like, God, he's so good.
Yeah.
And it's basically Nick Cage, the crazy maniac from, all the crazy maniac Nick Cage roles that you love.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's great. And it's fantastic. And there needed to be so that's your that's your story. I mean, get rid of the CIA thing, make him make him become paranoid completely unnecessarily, have Nikki driving his mania.
Right.
And you're good. Like, you are good. You don't need Tiffany Haddish to show up and disappoint you, because why is Tiffany Haddish not good in this role?
Yeah.
You just have Nick Cage and Pablo Pascal being awesome with Nikki driving driving things.
Yeah. I found myself wanting more of those interchanges between him and Nikki.
For sure.
And then when you get to the scenes with Pedro Pascal, and you're like, their back and forth is so good.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you think this could have been so much more.
Yeah.
This could have been so much more.
And you still can do your Get Shorty ending if that's really what you want to do. and maybe I'm not annoyed with it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Big maybe. This was directed by Tom Gormican, who doesn't even have a page on Wikipedia. So who is this guy? Do we know him?
I don't know that I know
him. I remember when how the film ends and you get directed by him. Like, who? Let me see if I can figure out.
I mean, he has a page on IMDb, though.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if there are any notable titles.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I went and it's nothing.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in how did this get written? I would watch a 15-minute featurette on how this movie got made. Like that.
You might not need much more than that.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. I don't want more than that. Like, if it was 30 minutes, nice. I'd be like, I'm not watching that. But 15 minutes, yeah. I want to know what happened.
Well, hey, here's another trivia tidbit. It premiered at South by Southwest. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Way to go, Austin. Yeah. So was I entertained? Yeah.
Yeah.
But was it a good movie? Well, let's talk about ratings so we can figure that out. So here on Real to Real Talk, we have a 5-taco rating. A movie can get as many as 5 tacos, but you can throw guac if you love it enough. Paul, if I may, can we finish with you? And I'll just go ahead and jump in with mine.
Go ahead.
I established I just needed to be entertained.
Yes.
But I'm also going to be fair about, what was missing and not good about this. I'm going to give it a generous 2 tacos, no guac.
Oh, okay.
Simply because it was, for me, a self-aware performance by Nicolas Cage that he was willing to poke fun at himself, at his work ethic, if you want to call it that.
Right.
The tiebacks to some of the films. I loved how they didn't that little clip from The Rock, or a couple of the other films that you saw. You didn't want it to be this heavy-handed, okay, watch a few more seconds of the scene. They've used it. Moments like that were
right.
enough for me to go, okay, I'm not going to settle for 1 taco. This is a 2-taco film that I probably won't ever revisit again. So.
I'm going to shock you. I'm going 2 tacos plus the guac, and they're not good tacos, and it's not good guac, but they do the trick, and
until they break.
It's really a 2-taco movie, and I'm giving it the guac because of Nikki. I'm giving it the guac because Pablo Pascal is just amazing in this. Yeah. And I'm giving it the guac because of his shrine to Nick Cage, which is just
that was so good.
Amazing. And
so good.
There is a scene in that movie, a scene in that or a brief line in that leads to my what the hell did I just watch, which I'm just gonna throw that out there. Because I'm gonna call back to it when we get to it here in just 2 minutes. But so that's it. I'm going 2 tacos plus
2 tacos plus guac. Crispy tacos that break when you start eating them. So so that's our view of the unbearable weight of massive talent as we looked at the films of Nicolas Cage here on the show tonight. Again, judge for yourself. Check it out. I don't know. Maybe wait. But you'll want to catch it at some point. I won't necessarily send you to the theaters to do it because many people weren't there. So there's been a few films that we've seen over the last few weeks that I walk into the theater and I'm like, I've got this entire thing to myself. So yeah. But so there you go. That is our segment for this, or the feature for this week. Make sure you go back and catch some of the Nicolas Cage stuff that you haven't seen from before 1997 or so, 2000 perhaps, I think we said. Because there's a whole lot of strikes.
I say 2000, anything from 95 to 2000 is
you're good.
I am giving you go ahead and
the golden age of Cage.
You're at the very worst, you're watching Snake Eyes or Bring Out Your Dead, and in either case, there's something worth watching.
There's still something worth watching. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to a point where we just remind you can find us on social media. Make sure you stop by our Facebook page, Real to Real Talk, and comment, talk to us, post there if you'd like, share with us anything you'd like us to talk about or things you've seen. Also on Instagram, you can find us at Real to Real Talk, and you can see show posters and such, all the things we've talked about here on the show. But most importantly of all, if you're watching us on YouTube, we say thank you. And don't forget to click that subscribe button so that if you do miss our live episodes week to week, you can catch them as they're archived on our Real to Real Talk channel on YouTube. Now would also be a good time, Paul, to let them know that we are once again going to be changing nights beginning next week. So make sure you catch us on YouTube. Paul, when will they find us?
We're moving back to Tuesdays, kids. Back to Tuesdays. That was our original home for a long time. We switched to Thursdays because we were like, you know what? It's going to give us a little extra time to see movies. And also everybody else more time to catch movies so we can be maybe a little spoilery, but we both kind of agree, you know what? We kind of like Tuesdays better. So
yeah, exactly. That way I can see Doctor Strange next week. So
there you go.
But no, Tuesday nights will work a whole lot better. And you're just going to have to keep up with us because we'll be watching movies before then. Yeah. Tuesdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. You can find us live on both YouTube and Facebook Live. So make sure you check us out. All right. It is time for a segment we love to call What the Hell Did I Just Watch? Paul, I have a feeling You're going to continue today's theme.
Yeah, I am definitely continuing today's theme. And for, you can imagine that somebody's been in 111 feature films. He's probably made a couple that were kind of weird, especially
direct to video.
Yeah, especially when, especially when the great majority of his work for a 10-year span was direct to video.
Yeah,
he probably made a few that were like, "What the hell is this? What did I just watch?" And okay, so I did 2 this week, and I did 2, and one of them, as I just alluded to, was mentioned in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And this is a movie that if you have seen it and you were watching The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, it would be impossible as soon as he walks into the shrine, no matter how much you love The Rock or Face Off or Conair, the first artifact that you would have recognized was his giant silver weapon thing from the movie Mandy.
I'm so happy you solved that mystery for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was wondering.
Yeah. So the big silver hatchet thing, whatever that thing is inexplicably from the movie Mandy. He inexplicably forged it himself, even though there's absolutely nothing in this movie that says, hey, he makes weapons. Like, this movie, Mandy, is an absolute friggin' trip. And it's funny because Pablo Pascal says, Nick Cage says, oh, that's for Mandy. And then Pablo Pascal says, that's a masterpiece. And honestly, it kind of is. Like, I mean, it's a masterpiece of insanity. It really is, a movie where So Nick Cage lives with his wife in the middle of nowhere, and they somehow piss off a cult and the cult leader, and which instantly makes Nick Cage the second most over the top person in this movie, because the cult leader is just frigging insane. So automatically, there's something going on with this movie.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, the cult leader decides to drug his wife up with hallucinogens, and Nick Cage gets up on him too. And so there's just like a whole bunch of there's a half hour of just people on acid, and the filmmakers were trying to replicate that as much as possible, I think. And it's during which time Nick Cage has the wherewithal to forge this crazy fantasy weapon that is like, what? So the driving force for this movie that makes it weird is because his wife is a fantasy artist, like for fantasy novels and stuff like that. She does the cover art, like that's her job. Her job is to do cover art for fantasy novels. So it gets basically it borrows its art direction from fantasy novels. So that's why Mandy is kind of insane. Outside of that, it's a pretty standard revenge flick. Spoiler alert, we might be talking about another revenge flick later. But this one is a revenge flick set in an acid driven fantasy realm, with 2 people acting just so over the top it's crazy. But that's not even the craziest Nick Cage movie, because the craziest Nick Cage movie is Color Out of Space. And Color Out of Space is based off of a short story from H.P. Lovecraft. And really, that's all I should have to say about it. And you would know, okay, well, this thing's going to definitely be crazy. I'm going to go a little further, though. I actually read the story, and this movie is a fantastic adaptation of something that whenever it starts getting into the weird, the short story, it's like the narrator, the first person omniscient narrator says, but that's all I can tell you. Like it was so strange. I can't possibly, there are no words to describe what I saw, type of thing.
Gotcha.
And this movie, like, have you ever seen Alien 3?
Yes.
Okay, so the scene, actually, no, not Alien 3. Is it Alien
Resurrection?
I'm sorry, Alien Resurrection.
Yes,
the scenes where Ripley is seeing her, like, all of her, like, sort of mutations
the
while
clone
they were
attempts,
trying to,
yeah.
And
horrifying.
there's some horrifying, crazy, fucked up shit that none of that is as crazy, horrifying, fucked up as one scene in this movie. Like, I am flat out telling you, it is the most disturbing image I've ever seen on film ever. And it is really, really messed up.
Wow.
And the story itself is basically a powerful color arrives on Earth via a meteorite and starts transforming life within a radius of its impact.
Okay.
You know, its influence slowly grows, but it's basically just a very finite radius. And it just so happens that Nick Cage's farmhouse is in that radius. And things get really, really, really HP Lovecrafty and weird. And
as they should.
And I really liked this movie. I don't know what to tell. Like, this was a great example of a good director knowing how to get the most out of Nick Cage. Now, the interesting thing about this movie is it made me realize that when Nick Cage is playing an asshole, and he doesn't play an asshole a lot, but he has a very obvious vision of what assholes sound like and how they act. Okay. And it's always the same. And it's I don't know if directors say, okay, the person that you played in Vampire's Kiss, be like that. Or if they just say, all right, this guy's just being an asshole now, so be an asshole. And he just ends up being the guy that he plays in Vampire's Kiss. Like, it's one or the other, because basically through like the entire second act of this movie, he's playing his character from Vampire's Kiss. But it's a real trip. It's also really disturbing. So Color Out of Space and Mandy, if you want some, 2010 to 2020 Nick Cage movies that are just absolutely the most off the wall and crazy and not terrible, then this is where you're going to land. Color Out of Space.
That's the place to go.
Yeah.
All right. And Paul, where can we find these two films? Do you recall?
Schnikes. I don't. Oh man, I'm pretty sure I had to rent both of them.
Okay.
Color Out of Space might have been available somewhere. Color Out of Space might have been on Hulu or something, but Mandy, I'm pretty sure I had to rent Mandy.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, week to week, you can find out what kind of weirdness Paul is watching, and it's almost always something entertaining. It's always something entertaining. That's for sure.
This was a weird week. I'm telling you, Color Out of Space was one of the weirdest friggin' things I've seen in a very long time.
He gave you so much to work with over the decade or more. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that brings us to this week's real quick review. Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can kind of set us up for this week's review.
Okay. So real quick review. We're doing The Northman, which, super short story. It's basically a different telling of the Hamlet of the Nordic myth that Hamlet is based off of.
Yeah.
However, it is slightly different. And so I'm going to use an analogy to explain the difference. So imagine you are a vice president in a bank, and you are the favorite vice president of the president of the bank. And even though that you're much younger than some of the other vice presidents, when the president leaves, he's grooming you to be the next president. However, one of the other vice presidents, who's been around for a much longer time than you, takes that rather personally, doesn't appreciate it. So he finds a way to discredit the president, let's say, and get him kicked off, get him fired. And then he, because of his seniority, and it's not the president picking his successor anymore, he takes over as president and fires you as vice president. Okay. Now, cut to like 10 years later, you are no longer a vice president in a bank, but you are, a regional manager for like 100 branches for a different bank. Okay. You've got a pretty good job. You're doing okay. Right. And you're not terrible, but you still hold a grudge against the guy that fired you and got your good friend fired as well.
Right.
But then you catch wind that guy was actually fired like a year after he took over. And not only was he fired, but like he was fired in such a way that he couldn't possibly get another job in the financials sector. And the best thing he could do was night manager at a truck stop. And so now he's night manager at a truck stop, but you hold, as the regional manager to 100 branches of a bank, you hold such a grudge on the guy who got your best friend fired. You say, fuck this. I am going to go and be the bus boy at the truck stop where this guy works, just to fuck with him and to make his life miserable. And that's what the Northman's all about. That's what the Northman's about.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
It's about a guy who goes to fuck with the night manager at a fucking truck stop.
This is a revenge flick for sure. So,
yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
Given the way you've set it up, I wonder how you felt about this film.
Was highly disappointed with this movie.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to flat out tell you.
Complete opposite sides of the spectrum here.
I was so excited about this movie.
Absolutely.
I was so excited about this. I loved the first 45 minutes to an hour of this movie.
Okay.
And then we find out that the guy who kills his father.
That was what brought you down?
It takes the stakes of this movie and turns them into nothing. Like
wow.
there are literally no stakes in this movie anymore. It's like the guy's life sucks and you are so hell-bent on and the worst part about it is that neither one of these people, neither of the former vice presidents of the bank will acknowledge that their lives suck now and that neither of their kids are going to be king, because you can't just be king of a fucking sheep farm. There is no being king of a sheep farm. You're just a dude who owns the sheep farm.
So in your estimation,
yeah.
And again, we can land on two different sides of a view. In your estimation, the story was about he was no longer going to be king, and it wasn't. For me, the stake was revenge.
Yes.
The guy killed his father.
Yes.
Now, there were some twists that we saw coming.
Yeah.
So I think this is where this is our differing point. I know what you're saying, because when that moment reveals itself that, he's not in the same status as he was prior.
Right.
And it was such an aside that was thrown at our main character.
Problem number one. It's such an aside.
Right. See, I saw that. I didn't see it the same way you did. I looked at that as like, okay, then this becomes purely about revenge.
Sure.
And gaining vengeance for your father.
You are a badass berserker who is beloved by the dude that you work for.
Sure.
Beloved. Like there is an exchange between he and he's a berserker, so I don't know, like, is he a captain that he's working under? Whoever he's working under loves him. Just there's a scene between the two of them, and he's just like, dude, you're the fucking best berserker there ever was. God bless you. I'm so glad you're here with us.
But it was about destiny.
But okay, so
I don't know why you're just so comfortable dismissing my view.
You're fucking telling me that as a badass berserker, you can't get like 5 of your friends to be like, we're gonna go fuck this fucking asshole up that fucked up my life.
Sure.
And we're just gonna destroy his entire village.
But the entirety of the story itself was based on the notion of him. He had lost his path. Remember the promises he makes as he's rolling away.
Sure.
Right? He'd lost sight of all that.
Sure.
And something reminded him.
He had. Okay, sure. But I hear avenge my father as I'm going to get his territory back.
Oh, see, I didn't.
And if avenge my father and kill what's his face are if they are interchangeable in the exact same thing, then he only has a two job hit list. His hit list is now just 2 things. So why is it 3? What is avenge my father if it's not make the person who took over your thing belittled and destroyed and take over everything that he has? Like that's part of avenging your father who was king. Like avenging your father who was king is not just killing the dude who killed you. Like that's why killing the dude who killed you is its own thing on the list.
I would argue that in the Nordic tradition that it was about family first. It wasn't about position.
Okay.
That it was about, and again, neither both of us could be right, both of us could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I get that's the lens through which I viewed this film. That this and the fact that he didn't sit there and go, well, now he's running the night shift at the truck stop. Why am I going to waste my energy? I've got it so good here. He is so driven by the memory of his father, that it doesn't matter the guy's position. He owes me his life.
Okay, great. Why does he have to be the busboy in order to get revenge?
Sneak in.
Why does he need to sneak in?
Because he can't just go with the intent of, I'm going to show up and kill the guy. Number one, I might be recognized right away. That's going to put a damper on things because he's surrounded by his guys.
He's a fucking berserker.
Yeah, but he's a berserker. He's one berserker. He's one berserker.
He's loved. You're telling me,
right? But what were those berserkers doing?
They were getting slaves to send over to the other place.
They had their role. They weren't in the guy that he spoke to.
Yeah.
His boss.
Yeah.
Right. Who was giving him a great review.
Yeah. You're the best regional manager we've ever had.
Exactly. He doesn't care about this one guy's vengeance and destiny, so to speak, as he viewed it in the film. He cares about, we got work to do. That's why he sneaks out of camp. Right. That's why he cuts his hair. He ends up on the boat.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He became singularly vision.
He became Clark Kent. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're not recognizing this 6'10" blonde guy.
Right. Ripped. The bob haircut wasn't enough.
You blend in real well there, guy.
Right. I think for me, again, at the end, I think we agree it's a revenge film. How he got there, what he got there, okay. But I think for me, the only fault I found in this film is, you saw the plot twist coming a mile away. I knew from the beginning that this was going to be somehow driven by his mother. I don't care about spoilers at this point. Yeah. It's what I loved about this movie more than anything else. And as someone who, I love Robert Eggers' work.
Yes.
It's just so visually arresting. And I will forgive a lot of things in a movie.
Yes.
If the visuals, I mean, I couldn't tear my eyes, cliche.
Yes, for sure.
Couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen.
For sure.
And I loved it. I absolutely love it. It's the same reason I love The Witch. It's the same reason. I don't think I've even told you I finally got around to The Lighthouse.
It's so good.
That carries a lot I but this was not a perfect film. This was not, I wanted it to be 5 out of 5,
I wanted it.
But it falls.
I went in like, this is getting 5 stars, and like there has to be something that happens that knocks it off of that, or 5 tacos.
And I think it did. I think it did happen.
Yeah, and for me, it did big time. I get that you just want it to be about revenge.
Okay.
I don't think that means that you need to lessen the importance of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like it does. Like, really, this fucking berserker guy needs to sneak in? Why? Like, I mean, this loser that manages a truck stop needs to have like 8 guards guarding his fucking thing. Why? Like, why did these guys follow him after he got his ass handed to him and he was exiled to Iceland? Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many things that just don't make sense about the second half of this the late half of the basically just like the second and third acts.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't get it. I don't understand why any of this matters. Like, the only part of it that made sense was when he, when it's like, okay, it's like, I have to choose between my revenge and my family, but I'm not going to make a choice. I can get both. And that's just like, that's such a laughable like scene. And I think it's supposed to be funny. I think it's supposed to be like, everybody who's in this theater knows that, no, you don't get to have both. Like, nobody ever gets to have both. But I feel like you could never get to have both if you're going in and you're going to kill a king.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that you need to go in and kill a sheep farmer or a goat farmer or whatever he is. Like, I feel like moving it from the kingdom to
a farm
just made it like this is not going to be that difficult. Like the slaves literally outnumber the other people. They doubled the population of this tiny little goat farm when they brought the slaves in, and it's like, what? Like,
there are some reaches you have to make in terms of. In fact, I'm not even. I'll be honest. I didn't even think about the fact that the slaves outnumbered those who owned the property.
Yeah.
Because I think the way in which we saw that they were being treated really put them at a disadvantage. Right.
For sure. Look, I mean, America has the history of understanding that that's how those things work when you have the power. But it's like, what power does he have even over?
Yeah. And again, I guess for the movie to make sense to me, it was purely about the revenge, because, and here's where this is one of the reasons that even my viewpoint of the film fails. The only out you had was what happened at the end for the character.
Yes,
there was only one out.
Yes,
because anything else would have been like, yeah, and then what?
Right,
right. And so regardless of how we got to that point, I think we both know that they painted. I feel like they painted themselves into a corner. We're like, well, we're going to make it dramatic by this, which is such a trope in revenge films.
Yeah.
So
and it's just so silly that these two people are like, my kids are going to be kings of what? of what?
Yeah, that is very much an an unexplained thing.
Like,
so
what are your kids excited about? Like, oh boy, Dad, I got more goats than anybody else in Iceland. Woo!
Well, remember, he sent them away. They went away. We're left with a lot of unexplained stuff. So yeah. Again, what saves this movie for me is just the absolute beauty of this film, the brutality of some of the scenes that wasn't played for gore but more for story.
And more for spectacle. And I needed more spectacle. And as soon as they reached Iceland, the spectacle was gone forever. And until they had the Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Anakin Skywalker fight scene at the end. And
so great.
And it's like, and by then it's just like, no, this is not working for me, guys. This is not working for me at all. This king who got his ass handed to him by somebody, and we didn't get to see it, and hasn't had to fight anybody for 20 years or more, is now is still able to
big warrior man.
Is still able to be big warrior man in spite of the fact that he's fighting a berserker who caught a fucking spear with his bare hand.
Well, listen. Before we get to ratings, let me just ask you this: did you understand the rules to their version of Quidditch?
No,
because man, there was some stuff going on that I was like,
that was a fun scene.
And then when it got to the sort of the denouement of that particular sequence, I was like, is he gonna? What the?
Yeah, he was gonna.
Yeah, he was gonna. Absolutely.
He was gonna.
And I'm like, but his parents are right there.
See, and.
Oh, it was weird.
I personally would think it would have been a best if he had let him do that. Like, I think that would have had more impact than, he's ingratiated himself with the.
We had to get there somehow, but I just didn't get the concept of, because so we get to the moment where it's that character turn of like, now you're favored, right?
Yeah,
a bit, and I'm still left wondering, like, who were they playing? I thought it was another the slaves versus.
The slaves of one sheep farm versus the slaves of another sheep farm.
I missed that. I missed that completely. Okay, well,
because there were two important Icelandic people who are not actually royalty of any kind and don't actually have fiefdoms. They just happen to have land that they can have sheep.
Okay. I missed that. And the reason I love that scene so much was because it's the guy who played. I don't know if you were a Game of Thrones fan, but the guy who played the character of the mountain in Game of Thrones was the big guy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I didn't not make that connection, but that's awesome.
Yeah, good. But now it makes sense. I thought they were just on an outing, and they said, okay, slaves on this side, workers on this side. I didn't realize it was two different factions.
It was two different
factions. That makes a whole lot more sense to the moment we,
Yeah, it was intermural,
Welcome to the show.
Not intramural.
Right.
So, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with all of that said, Eggers, I think, has yet another unique film on his hands as part of his filmography.
Beautiful fucking movie.
Paul, I yield to you to start us off.
Right. I do give it 3 tacos.
Okay. All right.
Because the first 45 minutes is fantastic. Near flawless. The first battle scene when he's the berserker is just a perfect set piece. Perfect. Absolutely. You cannot make a better set piece than that, with everything going on in the background, the camera work, the attention to detail, and everything that's happening. Perfection.
That was right there.
But goddamn, you don't need to lower the stakes. You don't need to shoot yourself in the foot. It's not necessary.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you won't be surprised to know that I will give it 4 tacos, no guac.
Okay.
And no 5 tacos, because it did have some big gaping holes within the context of the entire film and story.
Yep.
And man, I wanted just a little bit more Valkyrie imagery. Good gravy. When they did show us stuff,
awesome.
It was beautiful.
That was frigging awesome.
It was so beautiful. Not sure what my Twitch.
It definitely needed more Eggers in it too. That was pure Eggersness, and I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, I'm gonna encourage people to check it out.
Odin, they should have had Odin show up a lot more, and they should have. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So no, you're right. So make sure you catch the Northman. This was this week's real quick review, which wasn't real quick, but what the heck. So yeah, check it out, and we think you will be pleased. No, absolutely, and that's the thing, is we love to talk films around here. So make sure you join us next week, starting on
Tuesday at 8.
Absolutely. 8
Eastern, 7 Central, Tuesday.
Indeed. So make sure you stop by once again here on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. If you do miss our live broadcast, you can always catch them here by making sure you click on that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when our episodes are archived. Mm-hmm. Paul, next week, we get another Liam Neeson action film.
Yeah, we do. But you can't find the damn original movie anywhere.
I'm so disappointed. I really wanted to do a comparison contrast.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah. But I tell you, when I saw this trailer start to roll out a few weeks ago, I was like, are we going to get Taken 4? Is this Taken 4?
It is Taken 4, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's going to seem like that.
But this is like his 3rd Taken 4 movie, so that's all right.
Oh, is it? Is it okay? Yeah, he's really, this is... One of these days we'll have to talk about the filmography arc of one Liam Neeson, because man, he's kind of like
what we're gonna do instead. I'm down
maybe
for.
Maybe we should. Yeah,
I'm down for that. Like I could definitely have a really good Liam Neeson combo.
Yeah, he's one of those actors that his career took a certain turn that we don't resent. At least I don't. In that he has sort of what he we'll talk about it. I don't want to spoil it, but. Yeah. Yeah. But I think of what is her name from the Underworld series, Kate
Beckinsale.
Thank you, Kate Beckinsale. She starts out as a sort of rom-com staple, and then just becomes this like action goddess. And so it's I think we let's talk about Liam Neeson. Neeson next week.
Well, we got our episode for next week. I was literally this is literally a conversation we were gonna have immediately after the show, but you got to see it here live on the show.
Indeed. So, that's congrats. Okay. And then the week after that, we're gonna talk about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So lots to look forward to these next couple of weeks. So make sure you stop by. Paul, as always, I love having these talks with you. So we'll continue doing it next week. All right. With that said, we thank you once again for being here. And we remind you, you are awesome. You're amazing. And the world's a better place because you are in it.